Food should be pretty straightforward. It grows, we eat, digest, excrete, and any nutrients our bodies don't use go back into the soil. And so the cycle begins all over again. Simple. So why then is our global food system so topsy-turvy? It emits greenhouse gases and fuels climate change, degrades land, pollutes soil and water, and wipes out wildlife, including insects and other animals that pollinate our crops. So it's actually robbing us of our ability to feed ourselves. And at the same time, we're wasting what we've got. A whopping 1.3 billion tons of perfectly edible food gets binned each year, while nearly 700 million people go hungry. So it's a real conundrum, but there are simple fixes. Basically, produce food sustainably and don't waste it. And markets like this one here in Qatar, which sell local and organic produce, are signs that these ideas are catching on. In this programme, we'll meet the Kenyan smallholders who are working with soil scientists to produce more and restore degraded land. And our first stop is South Korea, where one of the world's most successful recycling programmes is putting food waste to good use.
At least 1/3 of all the food produced for human consumption is never eaten. In developing countries, it is usually lost or wasted before it reaches the shop shelves, when it's produced, stored or transported. And in wealthier countries, it is largely the retailers and the consumers who are responsible for sending food to the trash bin. South Korea is leading the way when it comes to handling food waste. A couple of decades ago, only 2% of discarded food used to be recycled. But today, this figure has soared to 95%. I'm going to find out how the country has achieved this turnaround. South Koreans throw away more food on average than Europeans and North Americans. To understand why, we need to look at the country's traditional cuisine. 안녕하세요. Here's a typical meal. Along with my main dish, I'm having eggs, salad, and an assortment of vegetables. And it all comes for free. These side dishes, called banchan in Korean, are often left untouched, and whatever remains goes straight to the garbage can.
아깝지 않아요?
음식 하나 손 안 댔어도요.
네, 다 버리는 거예요.
Mr. Sol, who runs this restaurant, thinks this centuries-old tradition has become a burden.
실질적으로 반찬은 많았지만 음식물 쓰레기가 나오질 않았습니다. 그냥 가축이나 다른 밑에 사람들이 먹고 그래서 그렇게 문제되질 않았고요. 그 쓰레기를 처리하는 비용도 많이 들어가고 음식을 많이 만들었지만 그 비용까지 계산해서 음식값도 올라갈 수밖에 없는 거예요. 저희 매장에서는 음식물 찌꺼기 60kg 정도 나오는데 그거는 우리 자체에서 어떻게 해결할 수가 없기 때문에 음식물 처리 업체가 있습니다. 그 업체와 계약을 해서 그 업체들이 와서 다 수거해 갑니다.
Behind the scenes, a team from a startup called One gathers data to calculate how much Mr. Sol has to pay for his monthly trash output, together with the 100 other food outlets in this mall. Every night, bins are emptied into this 5-ton truck. The leftovers show what's on the menu of the various eateries here.
Here there are lots of seaweed, and here there are fruit peels and different vegetables. And here you have lots of eggplants.
This startup works with more than 400 clients across the country.
We've been trying to make the overall process more transparent. We keep track of the waste from A to Z. We do GPS tracking on our trucks, so you know on real time where the waste is.
Once the trucks are loaded up, they go straight to a recycling facility nestled in the mountains to the south of Seoul. The South Korean government has implemented strict regulations on food waste, including a ban on incineration and dumping it in landfills. This has opened up new business opportunities for startups like One. Liquid residues become biogas, while solid waste is turned into fertilizer or heated to produce slurry, which comes here to this plant, which has sought the help of an unexpected ally.
black soldier fly larvae. These are able to transform almost any kind of organic waste into high-quality protein.
You want to try?
Sure.
So they could eat up to twice their body weight. They have 4 cages in each incubator, and in each cage we put around 30 to 40 kilos of food waste, and they actually treat all that in a day.
In one day?
In one day.
We are about to feed thousands and thousands of hungry maggots. Breakfast time?
Yeah, breakfast time.
Like this?
Yes, you could pull it all the way.
Shall I pour the food waste all over the maggots?
Yes, when it covers around 80%, you could stop.
After 9 to 10 days, most of these larvae are harvested and then processed into protein-rich meals for animals, such as poultry and fish. The rest are taken to a different enclosure where they transform into adult flies, which then breed, producing more waste-guzzling offspring.
The food waste has been processed into the feed for the black soldier fly to being used for the animal feed. Those animal feed is being fed to the animals, and those animals are eaten by the human beings. So those kind of virtual cycle actually works very environmental friendly way.
With all the resources that go into producing uneaten food, together with the gases generated when it decomposes, food waste is responsible for up to 8% of global greenhouse gas emissions. The South Korean government has implemented a strict system which charges according to the amount of food thrown. Citizens like me are required by law to discard food waste in separate containers or face a fine of up to $900. To make the recycling process easier, private companies have developed smart bins for use at home. They reduce the weight and therefore charges paid.
So now I'm going to put a bag of food waste into the smart bin and we'll see what happens.
Food waste is more than 80% water. This bin heats it so it dries out. After 3 hours of processing, well, it's cooked.
As you can see, it takes much less space.
There are several disposal methods in Seoul. In my case, I need to buy these biodegradable rubbish bags. With this system, I'm more conscious about the amount of waste I discard. My leftovers will end up in one of the 35 plants dedicated to food waste recycling in the capital and its neighborhood. In some residential districts in the south of the city, high-tech bins like this are more than mere receptacles for scraps.
안녕하세요. 어서 오십시오. 주민들께서 직접 가정에서 나온 음식 폐기물을 직접 쓰레기 봉투에 담아 오셔서 투입구의 앞에서 카드를 찍으시고 그 이후에 개폐구가 열리면은 음식물을 쏟아 부으신 다음에 산정 무게가 나오게 됩니다. 내가 배출한 음식물 쓰레기가 어느 정도 양이 되는지 확인을 하신 후에 닫히게 되는 거죠.
After being fermented for a week, food waste comes out as compost. It's being used by residents of this apartment block to fertilize a shared garden. Mrs. Lee has dedicated her free time to urban farming for the past 5 years.
보여드릴게요. 저기 약간의 음식 냄새도 약간 나요.
한번 제가 만져봐도 될까요?
네, 조금 만져보세요. 냄새, 지금 음식물 냄새가, 이게 음식물 냄새예요.
고소한 냄새가 나는데요.
이거 한번 뿌려볼까요?
네네.
우리 한번 밭에다가 테일 한번 줘보게요.
네네.
네.
얼만큼
네. 많이 뿌리지 마시고 적당하게 뿌리세요. 조금. 야채 가게에서 파는 맛하고 정말 달라요. 이 텃밭을 한 뒤로부터는 단 한 번도 이 고추하고 이 상추는 단 한 번도 사서 먹어본 적이 없어요.
More than 16,000 of these automated bins have been installed in Seoul. It's innovations like these, together with strict government regulations, that have enabled South Korea to turn its food waste problem around. If there is one place that symbolizes this success, it's Sky Park. Located west of Seoul, it attracts 10 million visitors annually. But only 30 years ago, this is what it looked like. Back then, it was the largest landfill in the world, a place that South Koreans called the land of death. Professor Kim is a landscape architect who's been studying this park's transformation.
이 공원으로 되기 전에는 쓰레기가 100여 메타 정도 쌓여 있는 장소입니다. 그래서 원래 냄새도 굉장히 많이 났고 또 파리들도 굉장히 많이 날리고 먼지들도 많고 그런 장소였습니다. 그런데 여기를 이제 공원으로 하고 나서는 안정화 공사를 하고 이 위에 복토를 흙을 덮고요. 거기에 나무들을 이렇게 심으면서 이런 공원이 된 것입니다. 지금 냄새 나나요?
아, 전혀 안 나요. 그래도 요 밑에는 다 쓰레기인 건가요, 아직은?
그렇습니다.
The waste buried under Sky Park is in the process of decomposing. This releases methane, a potent greenhouse gas with a greater global warming potential than carbon dioxide. But here, it's captured and converted to energy to heat surrounding offices and homes.
일단은 여기가 환경적으로는 생물 종 다양성 측면에서 굉장히 많이 증가가 됐습니다. 처음에 이제 얼마 안 되던 거에서 식물 종들, 동물 종들이 늘어났고요. 그러다 보니까 이 공원을 이 쓰레기 매립하기 전의 상태, 뭐 새들이 날아오고 그런 상태처럼 바뀌어가고 있는 거죠.
I feel that behind the transformation of this landfill lies a useful lesson. Recycling alone will not solve the problem. It takes a lot of time and money to heal from the damage caused by the excessive amount of food waste we discard. This park serves to remind us that the very first step needs to be to change our habits and throw away less.
In 2015, we filmed with Adam Smith, founder of the Real Junk Food Project, which intercepts and redistributes food that would otherwise be wasted. At the time, a network of 25 cafes around the UK served meals made from rescued food. And since then, Adam's helped create over 120 projects in the UK and 6 other countries, and 7,000 tonnes of food has been saved from the bin, which shows, of course, how successful the project is, but also that the problems only got worse.
So we're at the Kindness Warehouse at the Real Junk Food Project in Leeds. This is a 15,000 square foot warehouse that intercepts surplus food that would have gone to waste. You can see behind me is all the compostable stuff. So next to us we have a community farm that we compost all this waste to make sure that none of it goes back into landfill. We see beautiful fruits and vegetables and lots of very expensive products that come in, like nuts and seeds and high value kind of niche products going to waste when you know there's so many people that can't afford to get access to this food. This amount of food symbolises a lack of relationship to the sources of food, but also it's the resource that go into producing all of this for it to be shipped all over the world, stored in single-use plastics and then to be dumped or wasted. So in order to restore the balance, we need to connect better with our food. So much more local and sustainable and seasonal food systems. I think it's more crucial now than ever, given how quickly climate change is affecting every single one of us globally, that we consider our impact much more in terms of the food that we purchase. The seasonality of food, the sustainability of food, the packaging that's on the food, where it's sourced from. There's a lot that we can do as consumers, and there's lots and lots of projects that you can get involved in that deal with food waste, but it also starts at home about how much we purchase and how much we waste.
As we go about our busy daily lives eating, if we're lucky enough, our 3 meals a day, it's so easy to forget where our food comes from and how challenging it can be to produce. But a lot of what gets binned comes from smallholder farmers from around the world, and it's them who are struggling most to cope as climate change intensifies and soil health declines. And for our next story, we're off to Africa, which is one of the continent's hardest hit.
For the last decade, Kenya has been dealing with droughts and erratic weather patterns that have damaged the land's productivity and threatened food security. I am a farmer and I know how difficult it is to work with a changing climate. I have a small farm outside Nairobi where I raise livestock and grow food crops. 2 years ago, because of a harsh drought, my soil dried out and I lost all my harvest. Having worked the land, I know how vital healthy soil is. Without it, the farm fails. But I've heard about a team of scientists who are working together with farmers to make degraded lands fertile once more. One of the things they do is to test soil. Intensive agriculture and other damaging practices, along with the effects of climate change, have left 1/3 of the planet's land degraded. The situation is so severe that 30 football pitches of soil are lost every minute. The International Center for Research in Agroforestry, also known as ICRAF, is a leading authority on land management and restoration. I've come to its headquarters in Nairobi to meet head soil scientist Lee Winowiki. Hey, Dr. Lee.
Hi, Caleb.
Pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I've heard so much about the good work your team is doing here at ICRAF. Let me ask a very simple question. What is soil?
Soil is the biologically active layer of the earth. It is a mixture of minerals, organic matter, and organisms that together support life. 95% of our food is produced in soil. Soil acts as a filter and regulates the water cycle and has the potential to store large amounts of carbon, contributing to climate change mitigation.
It's simple. Without healthy soil, we can't survive. This only makes the work being done here even more important. I brought a sample of my soil for you to look at. This is from a trouble sample of my farm. Could you look at it and tell me what's wrong with it? My soil will be prepped and sent for analysis. In the meantime, Lee wants to show me the soil library, which houses over 100,000 soil samples from around the world.
Every single soil sample represents a farmer's field. Every sample comes with a barcode. When we scan this, we get all the information of the GPS coordinates, the soil data, the status of the health of the soil. All of these samples are collected with farmers. We have a very important engagement with farmers to understand their local knowledge about soil ecosystems.
Nutrient levels are key to soil fertility. The team here have an efficient way of measuring them.
This is a machine that we use to analyze soil sample, just to look at different nutrient levels in the soil using light, just light.
No chemicals?
No chemicals. We place the sample on top of the infrared light coming from the instrument. You get a soil fingerprint that tells you the levels of different nutrients. From that, you can use that data and knowledge to know what to do with your farm.
Measuring a sample using this machine takes only a few minutes. Once the results are ready, they will be deciphered by Lee. In the meantime, my next stop is the Living Soils Lab, where my soil is being analyzed for another component vital for its health: creepy crawlies.
It looks okay, but the organisms are not there, and the organisms play a role in binding that soil to form firm and compact soil, which can absorb nutrients, which can keep the soil stable, and which, if it rains, it cannot be eroded. They also make the soil fertile in that they eat organic matter and then pass through their intestines, and then it is released into the soil. I have another soil which has come from the neighboring county, one of the farmers.
I see a bag.
Yes. This one has some bugs. This is an earthworm.
How come mine doesn't have?
You've over-cultivated your land.
Yes, I have.
You use a lot of fertilizers, which may make the soil to be very acidic. And when the soil is acidic, earthworms will move away. They will look for better places which the soils are good.
From macroorganisms we can see to the bacteria, fungi, and other microorganisms we can't, the ground under our feet is teeming with life. In fact, there are more organisms in 1 tablespoon of healthy soil than there are humans on Earth. But that is just one aspect of the soil ecosystem. Water, air, nutrients and minerals like nitrogen and potassium are all part of the rich mix that enables soil to support life, together with organic carbon, which is found largely in decomposing plant and animal matter. It's a fine balance and one that is easily destroyed by unsustainable land management practices, such as the use of chemical fertilizers, pesticides and intensive plowing. My results are ready, so I meet up with Lee again.
We like to use soil organic carbon as a key indicator of soil health. So your soil has about 2% carbon.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
We like to encourage farmers to have more than 0.5%. So you're well above that threshold. Another key nutrient is nitrogen. So your nitrogen is within the normal range for agricultural soil.
I'm relieved that, even without organisms like worms, my soil is relatively healthy, but I'm from an area of Kenya which usually receives rain. Lee wants to show me soil from a farmer living in a harsher region.
Urbanos is a farmer we've been working with in eastern Kenya. We have some samples where Urbanos has been applying agricultural restoration options on his farm. After 2 years, Urbanos has doubled the soil organic carbon in his farm. We are able to learn how these restoration options influence soil health, but also by Urbanos working with eCraft, we're able to feed back this information through one-on-one conversations, focus groups discussions, to really show how his soil is improving through his management practices.
I want to find out more about regenerative techniques, and so I'm off to visit Urbanos. We are driving through eastern Kenya, and as you can see, it's way drier than it is in the highlands where I farm. I'm looking forward to learn from Urbanos how he's been able to make his land more productive despite farming in a semi-arid region. Good morning, Urbanos.
Yes, morning.
How are you doing?
I'm fine.
All right.
Yeah.
Who is this with you?
This is my wife.
All right.
Anastasia.
Anastasia, pleasure to meet you.
Welcome.
What are you doing? It looks like you're digging up a latrine or something.
This is a basin. Actually, the purpose of the basin is to collect water during the rain season, because in our area it will rains just heavily for a short period.
So, Urbanos, can I give it a try?
Yes, you can.
Water harvesting techniques like this are useful in drought-prone regions. Urbanos wants to show me some of the other sustainable methods he's been trialing on his farm.
This is where we are doing intercropping. You can see the spinach.
Yes.
We have kales.
Okay.
Also, we have a pumpkin. As you can see here, our area is very dry, so we are planting it as a cover crop. Will help us in reducing the rate of evaporation, so our soil would get dry so easily. This is a pawpaw, so big.
Wow!
They look nice.
How does it make you feel when you see your children eating the lovely pawpaws?
I feel good, I feel very proud, and I feel very good when I'm not buying them from the market. They are in my farm.
3 years back, my land was like this.
Like this?
Yeah, it was exactly like this, even more worse. But now, as you can see, after practicing these technologies, that is water harvesting, agroforestry, mulching, using manure.
Yes.
Now my land from those years is looking better. As you can see, it's more green.
It's like a little Garden of Eden.
Exactly.
More than 2,500 farmers in eastern Kenya are working with eCraft, sending soil samples, trialing techniques, and sharing their successes and failures. Urbanos is a community facilitator. Farmers from around the county come to learn from him about methods that could help them. His farm shows how restorative practices can heal the land. Not only is his crop yield up by more than 70%, but with its increased carbon content, his soil is helping in the fight against climate change. As farmers in Kenya, we are definitely dealing with a difficult period, but there is hope in building a resilient earth. We are at a tipping point, but if we can restore our soils and these interventions are scaled up, we have a fighting chance.
Food represents so much more than a plate full of protein or a fork full of pleasure. It's about everything that goes into it. So the soil, the water, the fuel to transport it to market, the electricity to cool it down, the labour to produce it, often, as we've seen, in really tough conditions. So waste food, and all that goes to waste too. The natural world works in cycles, and we, of course, are part of it. And our survival is not just about reaping what we sow, but about using nature's resources wisely and giving back wherever we can. So really, it's about respect for the earth, for everything that we eat, and for the people who keep our food cycle going.